It's 7 o'clock. We can get started. This is the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Commission for City of Urbana. And today is Tuesday, February 21st. Could we have a roll call?
Annie Adams.
Here.
Bill Brown.
Here.
Bruce Michelson. Here. Kara Dudek.
Here.
Joseph Shaw. Nancy Westcott. Here. Susan Jones.
Here.
Daniel Sapphire.
Here.
Sartak Prasad. Audrey Ishii. John Zeman. Here. Okay, we have a quorum.
Okay, thanks. Are there any additions or changes to the agenda? I'll add one to new business under, just for discussion. All About You newsletter. That's, well, we can talk about when we get there. But that, if you're not familiar with it, that's the monthly newsletter that the city sends out, and we'll talk about getting more BPAC stuff in there. Anything else?
Have we talked about parking and bike lanes? Did you guys cover that last month?
We made that recommendation, and that's.
I was just curious, yeah.
We could follow up with that in staff report, or yeah.
Cool, and I have like an incidental on that as well, so yeah.
Okay. Yep. Okay. Approval of minutes from previous meeting. We have December. We don't have January yet, right?
Correct, just December.
Okay. And did anybody go through and have corrections for December? I saw a few things, but I didn't organize my corrections. I think they were mostly minor things.
Bill, you mentioned you said somebody named Chris was okay.
Yeah, under unfinished business, there was reference to
Oh, I see that.
Chris, and I'm not sure who Chris was. Was she just doing this from the tape or from the video?
Chris Brown.
Might have been hard to.
Yeah.
Maybe she misidentified. She thought she knew somebody she didn't. I don't know. But I don't remember a Chris being there. I asked Chris if RPC would be able to report on Vision Zero.
Right.
And there was
I
another
see
one.
that, yeah. Chris Brown, a Chris. I'll flag those and see if we can get that corrected to the right person.
Okay. I think there was another Chris in there.
Okay.
And there's no Chris in attendance at the meeting, so I'm not sure who that was. And it seemed like there was something else, but
I'll take care of that mystery person.
okay. Well, okay. Is there a motion to approve? Moved by Bruce. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
And seconded by Sue. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? That motion carries. Those minutes are approved as corrected. Public input. Anyone from the public wish to speak tonight? Nope. Okay. Unfinished business. Okay, Bruce Michelson has a presentation for us that he was going to do last month, but we were in the library and couldn't get the screen to work.
This will be quick.
Make sure that mic's on and move it really close too.
Hear me now? Okay. It's an idea which I think lies along the line of conversations we've had over the last two meetings, and is consistent with the mission of the committee to support and promote pedestrian and bicycle vitality, particularly in the downtown area. I was bothered by.
Can everyone hear?
Can you hear me okay? No? Louder? Okay.
There you go.
Thanks, all right, well, all right, I think you caught the basic prelims on that. I was bothered by what Audrey had to say about how we can drop off the map with regard to regional planning. When I was chair of this committee a long, long time ago, we had a similar problem with QWATs. I guess it's a continuing matter that we need to put ourselves for, have a high profile, as high a profile as we appropriately can. I was also caught by Annie's remark that the downtown infrastructure is antiquated, to say the least. I found this photograph from, it's 1942, and it's a familiar scene. If you flip those cars parallel, put in parking meters, and make a couple of curb cuts, you have pretty much what we have now. And I found that another provocation to sort of think about things we could do that we could actually afford to do to put some energy and something new into the area. This one really bothered me. This is the overhead shot in circulation right now to try to invite input and good ideas for how to re-energize the downtown. A quick look, it's a vast parking lot. We have a vast dedication to striped asphalt. Lots of places for cars to park, and paradoxically, a diminished number of places for them to go once they are out of their vehicles. That seems to me a pretty dramatic demonstration of something we have to address as a city. With a word of caution, I don't think too many people know about this. If you do infrastructure planning for pedestrians and bicycles before there's a demonstrated and energetic need, you can put the cart too far before the horse. This is looking at the only shots I could find of the downtown Champaign pedestrian mall from the early 1980s. Backstory quickly is the city of Champaign anxious that people and revenue were sluicing north across I-74 into the new Marketplace Mall, which was new and glamorous at that point, had the idea of blocking off Neal Street. I'm not making this up. They blocked Neal Street at University Avenue for about 2 blocks up as far as Hill. You can see they put in a brick streetscape, planters, benches, and a cantilevered kind of a sunken arena there with a canopy over it. And I think it was 2.5, 3 years later they tore it all out. It wasn't just grumpy motorists. It was the fact that nobody came. There was no pre-existing reason for anybody to come down and throng in front of Moy's Tea Garden, the dying Hamilton Hotel, or the now defunct Walgreens down there. So I wanted to look at things that are going well now. I don't have to introduce this to you. You know how important the farmers market is to not just economic activity in the town, but also it's an agora. It's where people run into each other. It creates community. It creates buoyancy. It gets people onto their feet and out into the sunshine. The downside of it is it's completely out in the open, except for what the vendors supply themselves in the way of canopies and awnings. And in case you haven't noticed, weather in Champaign-Urbana is uneven. We only have maybe 10 or a dozen viable farmers market Saturdays, and they can easily suffer if there's a bad morning or other adverse weather rolling in when things are just starting to go. So what I went looking for was what has been done in places which are not blue chip. I didn't look at Sausalito, Naperville, Nantucket. I wanted places other than the ones where the money sluices up out of the storm grates. Ordinary towns which had been able to do something inexpensive and directly to make a difference. And the area, of course, I was looking at first was that's where the farmers market is now. But I think if we go to a proposal to the city, we should be open to suggestion about other chunks of semi-abandoned asphalt that might be useful for this. Corbin, Kentucky, not on anybody's bucket list as a tourist destination. Don't put that in the minutes. It's an ordinary Appalachian town. a substantial drive south of Lexington. It's a place to stop for gas on the way down to Knoxville. They managed to get an attractive building together. It came out of if you look down the line here, the small print, a $4.9 million grant that was statewide for any kind of project of this sort in the state. They were able to get $100,000 apparently out of that, $1,500 in Whitley County funds. Whitley is a very poor county, by the way. And they were able to scobble this. Together. My sense is, from looking at a bunch of these, is they get built for anywhere from about $400,000 up to $1.5 million, depending on how elaborate you want to go. That, for infrastructure for a city, is, I wouldn't say chump change, but it's in range of what's actually possible, even in cramped circumstances. All right, Menominee, Wisconsin. Again, not one of the lake cities, an ordinary town. A friend of mine sent me this picture a couple of years ago. It's fairly recent. It got me thinking. It looks like a timber peg kind of construction, all wood, quite an imaginative design, and obviously big enough to run a pretty thriving market in fair weather or foul. I want to keep this going. Candor, New York. Nobody knows where Candor, New York is. I happen to, because I'm in Elmira a lot on Mark Twain business. It's about 30 miles into nowhere southeast of Elmira. Again, not a wealthy town, not a tourist destination. It's a, I don't personally don't like this one much. It looks like it's built on the cheap from a kit that you could pick up at a box store up on Prospect Street. And I see an alarming wall of particle board, I hope, across the back. I hope that's provisional, but nonetheless, it's there, it works. I think we can do better. But this, if you're bare bones, you could probably get this, as I said, delivered on the back of a flatbed truck and go with it. Arnold City, Missouri, another town you don't know. Here you can see the J.C.'s got involved. The interesting thing about this structure is it's got a central core, which you can use. Remember, you can use these things for other than farmers markets. Art shows, weddings, concerts. If you have an attractive pavilion in a good place, it can go places with it. And they have a kind of an extension area of linear stalls across the back for bigger days when I guess the vegetables really come in. Floyd, Virginia, not Fairfax County, okay? The other Virginia. Looks like they took an alley or a side street here, built a fairly simple, small structure, but put some imagination into it with the curved beamwork and the ventilating cupola above it. Some plantings around the outside for looks, and I assume the people in the apartments next door don't complain when there's fresh basil available on a Saturday morning. Bigger one. This is outside of Detroit. Again, not Grosse Pointe or Dearborn. I mean, any of the fancier suburbs. A much bigger structure. But for a bigger town, to give you an idea how far you can go if you want to go that way. One of the oldest ones is Ithaca. The Ithaca Farmers Market's at least 60 years old. Again, it looks kind of ramshackle, but it fits the funk of Ithaca, the kind of boho atmosphere that they feature. It's on the lake, so it has that advantage for like after hours activities. There are weddings, there are other kinds of shows that go on there, but it stood there for half a century. And it is a raucous scene, as I can vouch on a Saturday morning, in all the good ways. Hillsborough, North Carolina, not one of the North Carolina college towns. What struck me about this was the curved structure here. Otherwise, the cleating on the tops of the beams and all looks pretty conventional architecture. I like it's got a couple of fans, it's got some lights. I imagine there's some power outlets for the vendors down below, but that's pretty much the extent of the electrical and HVAC that goes into one of these things. Lansing, okay, Lansing, Michigan, okay, $1.1 million. I'm reading the small print. They put together a 14,645 square foot pavilion, picnic area, stage, and playground along this drive in Meridian Mall called the Marketplace on the Green. But they did all that, this sprawling structure, complete with a kind of Coronado Hotel red roof, for $1.1 million. So that too, that's our kind of town, like us, and something we could think about. And just locally, this was the gathering for Martin Luther King Day up at King Park, up on North Lincoln Avenue. Lousy weather, people there, people stayed. The Park District has a lot of knowledge of pavilions. They've got them in a number of locations. Personally, I think we can find something a bit more lyrical than that, but we could certainly reach out to the Park District for advice on where to go, what kinds of designs are easy, and what kinds of complications you run into if you decide to do more. And that's all I've got. What my hope is that maybe at the next meeting, the commission will entertain the possibility of proposing to the city that an attractive pavilion be constructed on one of the open areas in the downtown to support the continuing vitality of the farmers market. Obviously, as part of that process, we have to talk to the vendors and find out whether they want it. I can't imagine they wouldn't, but it's a ball I hope we could get rolling. It's something we could actually do, and it seems consistent with pedestrian and bicycle issues in the town.
So I was gonna say, I've had a lot of discussions about moving the farmer's market to downtown. And it's very so you'd have it in your downtown on Main Street, and then there'd be brunch, people would open up their restaurants. Afterwards, you'd have that Main Street section shut down for the day. Then you'd have music afterwards, so you'd make basically your Saturdays into a real money generating, community building exercise. People panic. They say people have all these trucks and we'll not be able to get the trucks in there and we can't get the trucks in there and which I find humorous because I've been in many cities which set up dense farmers markets in tiny little spaces. So I've always found that we can't have it in downtown Urbana because of trucks. And I love your pavilion idea. I think it's great and I like the multi-use aspect of it. I personally would love an outdoor roller skating rink with a DJ booth. So I'm just gonna throw that one in there. And I also would just like to add that picture of the parking lots. I mean, that's a real revenue problem for Urbana. Parking lots do not generate money. Parking lots cost money. They're, I think, $10,000 to $20,000 per parking space. They cost to build, not to mention they just lose money. You're not making money on a parking space. You're actually losing money on a parking space. So any way we can start converting that open lot parking, which I know the city does not own all of it, but if we can get, multi-use families, if, multi-level family dwellings, and any other things like that, that would be great. So thank you for your presentation.
Just to respond, the ultimate downtown street clogging, highly successful farmers market that I know of is Madison, Wisconsin, where they close off, and a zillion people come down, and it's so busy that you have to go around in one direction. They sort of sluice it
there's there's tons and tons of examples of shutting down your main street for farmers markets.
Yeah.
People like the space. There's more shade. It really builds up the businesses that are there.
But it is a higher hurdle to jump. You end up with more opposition, more complication, more what ifs.
Well,
And
and
as
the
you
other
say,
the other thing I'd like to add, though, from the bike pedestrian aspect, what I have found very troublesome in the last 2 years at our farmers market is they have opened up the street. So it used to be shut down at the co-op, so people could let their kids there. The parents would not have to be constantly afraid of their kids, but they open up the street so cars can drive through the co-op parking lot into the other side parking lot. And that used to be completely shut down, so you'd have an entire pedestrian space. And I stood there one morning and just asked people, I'm like, do you like this open? They're like, no, why is this open? I didn't find a single human who wanted to be able to drive their vehicle through that space. And yet, for some reason, the city thought it was a great idea to open that space. So I find that very, very troublesome.
on the parking lot issue, the city, I think, does own that lot on the south side of Illinois Street, right? Across from the existing farmers market.
Yeah,
Yes.
currently.
I don't know if I ever see a whole lot of cars in there, except on Saturday morning for that. That is just, seems to me like a sitting
That's
duck
been one that's
space.
been proposed for redevelopment before, and we even had potential redevelopments where the funding didn't go through, stuff like that. So I'm sure that that's their long-term plan for that.
Yeah, that'd be a perfect, it might be, be cautious. A lot of people are gonna have to put input. Good place to put a pavilion there, and then have people park over in the, where the market is now. I mean, and then handle the issue Annie's talking about, having to do with, cars coming in from incongruous directions. I'd like to see better bike racks around the market too, that we've got these.
Has there
Korean
been any
Warrior
kind of
bikes.
a capacity study of all the parking in downtown during one of these events?
Yeah,
I know we have a parking study, I want to say from like within the last 10 years. Yeah.
I can say for a fact, I ran an event called Imbibe Urbana in downtown. We shut down the streets. The parking structure was full. I got a text message from the planner at the time. Brandon sent me a text message and he said, parking lot is full. Never seen it full before. Congratulations, this is amazing. I was running into neighbors and I was like, how's the parking? Because I was pretty freaked. I was like, how's the parking? What do you think about the parking? They're like, we're Urbana, Annie. We're cyclists. And that was a neighbor of mine who never bikes. And I was like, what? So people had no problem finding parking. And this was an event that had thousands of people at it. And it was happening like every month. So people find parking.
Yeah.
We have plenty of street parking. We don't have enough bike parking, is honestly. The big blue bike rack has been destroyed and is no longer ever going to be put up anywhere, I guess, is my understanding. And at the farmer's market, there's not enough bike parking. So we actually have a bike parking issue. But we have plenty of, bring your car, very easy to get around in a car.
They're trying to get rid of parking lots already. I mean, they're trying to get apartment buildings and stuff that bring more people downtown. So that would be, if you're going to argue for the south side of Illinois Street, that would be what you'd have to argue against, is you don't want people in apartment buildings, you want the structure for the market.
It's going to be a multi-step planning process. We have to, we've got to talk to the vendors first, I imagine. Then we've got to look at people with better smarts than we've got. We need to look at the layout of the landscape we're looking at, where the possibilities are, what can be afforded.
Yeah.
But I'm just talking about, right now we're starting with a blank sheet of paper. If we can get the suggestion into the hands of the right city people, then maybe we can move the ball and have input along the way if and when it goes forward.
Let me, so keeping in mind this is Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Commission, let me go through a couple of things that popped into my mind that applies that we could work into a resolution to support something like this. So placemaking is conducive to walking and biking, brings more people together. So that would be one, like, whereas, extending the farmer's market season, making it less subjective to weather, encourages it to, we already know that farmer's market brings a lot of pedestrians and bicyclists, so anything we can do to extend that season or make it better in bad weather would improve bicycle and pedestrian, right?
You start with a whereas. I mean, whereas the farmer's market is an established pedestrian activity, high-profile, valuable pedestrian activity in the center of the campus, and just start, the fact that there's a lot of people in there, on foot or on wheelchairs.
So what else besides those two things? Can you think of anything else?
And keep the thing going. Yeah.
Any other things how that applies to bicycle and pedestrians? Anybody?
I think the closer it is to like Main Street, the more pedestrians could potentially go to the shops there too, right? And I think that's where we have our bike lane. The Illinois isn't great for biking. I know that part of Illinois between Race and Vine isn't super busy, but we don't have a painted lane there even, I think.
On Main Street?
We do have on Main, not on Illinois.
It occurs to me that,
yeah.
There's a vast chunk of open territory around where the Black Dog is, where the Jolly Roger used to be. I don't know who owns it, but we're sort of getting ahead of ourselves by going that far. I'm not going to be at the next meeting. I'm supposed to be in Death Valley trying to get killed. But I'll tell you what, I'll get some pros to you, Bill, as a possible draft suggestion, and it can be discussed, and perhaps something can be sent forward.
Yeah,
And
I just think, while we're all here, we have, 10 or 12 minds to throw ideas out. If anybody else can think of reasons that this would be conducive to improving bicycle and pedestrian activity.
Well, the other thing to remember is H Mart is going to be coming, and I think that's going to be quite a big draw to the Asian community and the young foodie community. And that's gonna replace, that's like across from Station Theater, that area.
Right.
And that would be, it's another big parking area, but somewhere towards that end would also bring people into downtown Urbana.
Yeah, and that's actually Yeah, that's across the street from the, you were thinking about the Timponi property, the big empty parking lot there.
The location isn't, like, we need to get the idea, I think. to
Yeah,
Be flexible there, but I just wanted to, I remember when, before we had the bike lane, and we had a meeting, and a lot of the businesses came in and says, you know, the bike lane will take away so much parking. And then somebody pointed out, like, how much parking is there that people didn't know about. And there was somebody from an arts thing, and they ended up saying, well, we'll do a mural so that people can know where to park. So they did, you know, there was a lot of slightly invisible parking that, as they said, you know, then people find it. But they feel like there was plenty of parking.
I wonder if anybody has ever come away from a trip to downtown Urbana saying, I couldn't find a place to park.
I think the
That's
busiest
not
I've seen
one
it
of our
is probably
problems.
like Sweet Corn Festival, and people have to park at Schnucks.
Oh, my goodness, all right. I had to walk 2 blocks, my heavens.
And that's probably because the downtown parking deck was inaccessible during Sweet Corn Festival. But
And I would like to say even like Champaign, I drive down there, frequently, and I easily find parking all the time. I'm not telling you my spot. But I easily find parking all the time, and I know they have decks. And I rarely, if ever, have to use one of their decks. And they have a way more dense, much less parking than we do, and much more foot traffic, and much more revenue-generating businesses than we do.
Just as a footnote to that, I mean, to Champaign's credit, they do have a successful pedestrian mall area now, but it followed the rejuvenation of hospitality businesses along Taylor Street.
yeah,
And so when
Yeah,
the
that's a
need
good
was
point.
created,
Which
they
comes
let it in and
first?
it worked. You know, so that they got the arrangement in the right order in that case.
and I guess it could be, well, I don't know. I mean, people staying in the new hotel, a lot of them probably won't have vehicles, or they might use public transportation or walks. So anything that would be an enhancement to that venue would be good. So
I
we
know
could mention that in there.
Cara, for example, will be moving to New Orleans, and she will see their beautiful year-round outdoor market, which is at Cafe Du Monde is on one end, and it is a delight, and it's a tourist attraction, and it's also a very usable thing for the people in the city who live there. And that was probably one of the first outdoor markets I saw that I found to be very successful. But it's pedestrian focused. It's, people, yeah, it's a pedestrian activity, which I think is A, the number one seller, and then B, we don't want to increase car parking for this facility. So I think that would then mean also it's people who are coming on transit and people who are coming on bikes will also enjoy being there.
I think our recommendation could be pretty general, but I am thinking, Sustainability Commission might like to put solar panels on top, and if it's going to be in an existing parking lot, then you might as well make that solar power available to recharge cars and things like that. So there's a lot of kind of things you could.
The city can float the idea. There's also a possibility you could see from some of those images I showed you that other people could throw in constructively, as J.C.'s, Ambucks. There's money in this town, and there's private support available. And if you can catch their imagination and see that this is something that's human scale and near term and a big benefit, we might be able to get an awful lot of those kinds of features and that kind of revenue coming in.
Any other?
Yeah, as far as the resolution goes, I was gonna say, like, our pedestrian plan and bike plan have, like, pillars to them. So, like, I could look through and see, like, safety, vibrancy, accessibility, connectivity, and then you're drawing it directly back to, like, the plans that we steward.
That's a great idea. Spoken like a planner, man.
And Cara, I really think you can join us virtually for these meetings because we kind of need you to herd us because we're just like a bunch of cats. So I'm just saying.
I'll be back for next year's goals.
Well, you still have one more meeting, right?
Kara, why
I'm
don't,
gonna be gone next month.
Oh,
Kara, why don't we do this? I'll send you a chunk of what might go into a proposal. You can apply your city planning expertise to it and perhaps present get a hybrid into the meeting in March. and perhaps something can come out that way. Make sense? Okay.
Okay, anyone else? Any other questions, comments?
I was just gonna say the Downtown Urbana Public Realm Study has a lot of public feedback on placemaking and flexible spaces, kind of like this. And so that could be used as like, look, the people want a public space, or maybe even give us some ideas of where a pavilion like that could live and what other uses it could have. So it's not,
Yeah, we have a planner here that might want to speak about the realm, public realm.
You really queued us up, Dan. Thank you for that.
Yeah, if I can just speak to the public realm study a little bit. I haven't been a point person on that project, so I don't want to misrepresent anything. But from what I've seen, it seems like you've touched on a lot of the big takeaways from that already. There's a surplus of parking. Our biggest draw to downtown is the farmers market, but we don't really do a good enough job of drawing other pedestrian traffic away from the farmers market to the rest of downtown. So just from the takeaways from what I've seen so far, it sounds like, this is very much in line with, what we're already looking at.
What is the study of the status of the public realm? That's closed for comments now, isn't it? And
Yes, the last I heard, they're planning on presenting a draft to council sometime in March.
okay,
Schedule right now is for March 13th. And actually, have the members been to the website for the public realm study? I might, during my presentation, just kind of give you a little teaser, because I think you guys will like the ideas that are floating out there, but yeah, more to come on that.
great, thanks. Thank you. Okay, next is reports of city officials and staff and committees.
All right. Well, and I was excited when Bruce mentioned to me that he wanted to talk about that because of what Nick brought up, the kind of big overlap. It's like, I don't know if it's just something's in the water or just the atmosphere, but let me try to pull this up real quick. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but just to point you to it in case you haven't seen it. All right. What just happened? Sorry, I did this on my phone and it pulled up like right away. Yeah, that's what it is. The phone is smarter than the computer. There we go. There it is. The city of Urbana. Something like that. Okay, so you can get to our site, which our site leaves a little bit to be desired, but gives you a little bit of overview of this study. There's the overview that Bruce pointed to as the boundaries of this public realm study. Then our consultant, Confluence, brought this on, and I just wanted to, like was mentioned, the study has kind of done its rounds of public involvement, but I wanted to and they're going to present in March on it. But I think some of these concepts you'll find really interesting. Kind of really, some of these are pretty big ideas. Like how could we rethink all of these areas, connecting Main Street with Farmers Market, blowing up Lincoln Square Mall, which I understand are definitely things that people have talked about before. Essentially just taking the roof off the mall and running a street down the middle of it because there's enough space inside the mall for a street right of way. Yeah, pedestrian
street?
Yeah, pedestrian street, car streets. I mean, there's all sorts of really interesting concepts out there. And I think that to speak into what Bruce was talking about, actually this image right here, if you can see where my cursor is, touches on it pretty well, where you come out the front door right back there and you walk across into kind of a gateway, an entryway into the farmer's market, which of course would require better pedestrian crossing of Vine Street, just another thing there too. It could be a great spot for a pavilion of some kind. So there's just some ideas that are out there. If you get a chance to play around, encourage you to take a look, and you can tune in on March 13th as it's scheduled right now. Okay. So parking and bike lanes, I did want to just circle back on that, Annie. We, when we brought it to Traffic Commission, where we're going to go with is basically have, no parking tow away zone along Green Street there, in the area that we were talking about. It's really just a matter of me getting an ordinance drafted and into council, which that's my bad. It hasn't happened yet, but that's the next step for that.
And I can, what we talked about in Traffic Commission was that cyclists don't have rear view mirrors. And so if they see someone parked in the bike lane, they just hop into the street. And recently a cyclist hit a bus. And it's my understanding that there was a FedEx truck parked in the bike lane when the cyclist did that. So we are absolutely on the right path for safety to eliminate parking in bike lanes.
Thank you. Okay, couple administrative things. We have, let's see, coming up in June of this year, we have 4 terms expiring for our membership. So I just wanted to give the heads up to you. We've got Annie, Bill, Kara, no, whatever, Yusuf, because I think Yusuf took over for somebody whose term was expiring, and then myself as well. So nothing you have to act on right now, but I just say if you want to shoot me an email, if you want to continue on BPAC, shoot me an email, and I'll throw that in front of the mayor, and we can get that ball rolling there. And we'll need to find somebody to take Kara's place as well, which I know I spoke with Derek, and he's hoping to, at the Park District, and he's hoping to get somebody to fill your shoes.
Yeah, I assume whoever takes like my position would just then be the de facto BPAC person.
Yeah, that's my understanding too. Yeah, with the Park District kind of having that spot on the commission. Yeah, very good. All right, and not that I don't love being the commission secretary as well, but I think I'm happy to share that we do have a couple of hires in Public Works for administration. We have a new administration supervisor, Michelle Heiger, recently accepted the job offer. We have Misty Vrablik as an administrative assistant, and we have a job. We're taking applicants for a second administrative assistant now as well. So we're trying to bring back our administrative staff, and looking forward to being a little more responsive with some of the things like minutes, and just being more responsive to residents and having our heads on straight better. Let's see. Well, I thought I'd float this out to you all. I forget. Oh, I know what it was. Hey, bicycle-friendly community application went out. I've definitely heaped my praises on RPC. I know they didn't get paid enough, and I want to, now thank all the commission members for your help as well. It was a heavy lift, so finger crossed, and we'll hope for the best on that one. Going through the application brought up a number of things that I learned, and I think I heard somebody mention about a blue bike corral. So we have a blue bike corral back in the yard at Public Works. I've heard a little bit about what it was used for in the past. We were chatting about if it would be a good thing to put at the farmer's market location, just kind of as a year-round thing. And I'd be happy to take thoughts or recommendations of what we could do with Big Blue.
I personally like Big Blue downtown. Like, for example, Rose Bowl has 2 parking spots, and you have to go up a curb to, like, lock your bike on it. And I was with somebody on a bike, and they fell over trying to get up and down the curb. They felt kind of stupid. So I don't know if there's any way. What I really liked about the Big Blue Rack being in downtown Urbana is it was really easy for me when I went to the dentist, and it was easy for like all my different errands. I knew I would always have parking right downtown in that spot, and I don't know why they took it out. I assume they make like $1,000 a year on car parking there or something. I truly don't know why they took it out, why they removed it. Something about snow plowing was my understanding. But I really like it downtown. I don't know where anyone else likes it, but I personally prefer it right downtown. It's the easiest for me. But the farmer's market is okay as well.
What about in the parking garage? As an
I don't
idea.
like parking in the parking garage, either with my car or with my bike. I feel like that's a great place for people to steal my stuff.
Okay. Fair point. Fair point. Okay.
Yeah, but then you still have to wait for that annoying, you gotta press the beg button and wait to get across the street to run your errands. Yeah, there you go, there you go. Yeah, I just never quite understood why it wasn't just like, why it was removed from where it was. I mean, Bill and I made a comment about it, and I was like, I hate to say this, you know, like it was a BPAC meeting, and I said, I really want to thank the city for keeping that bike parking rack up all year round. And Bill looked at me and said, I wish you hadn't said that, because now they're going to take it down, and they just forgot to take it down. So, yeah, so, and then after that, they took it down, and it never came back. So I don't know what to think. For me, it just kind of says, it's okay to bring your bike to downtown Urbana. I mean, right now, when I go to the dentist, I just park it, you know, on one of the meters. When I go to Rose Bowl, the Rose Bowl parking, there's not enough parking for that facility, bike parking for that facility. There's not enough bike parking, period, for that facility. And that's one of our actual businesses right now in downtown Urbana. So, I don't know.
Annie, where was it located?
In front of Crane Alley, to the left of the pedestrian crosswalk. There was a pedestrian crosswalk, and it was where that bump out is, and it was just that first parking spot right after the pedestrian crosswalk on the side of Crane Alley. Not where Crane Alley puts their, which they're no longer, we know, where they were putting their outdoor seating, but on the other side of that. So in front of the what's now like a fantasy shop, like gaming shop. That's where the bike parking was, and it was great.
It was just, and it was awesome because it was a visible announcement that bicycles mattered.
And it was central, so you could just run your errands. You could go to the co-op, you could just walk around and do a bunch of things and then come back to that. That's really what I liked about it, is it was just sort of the central space for me. But, yeah. But again, that's my problem with it being here, is like when I go grocery shopping, I just park, the co-op has great parking, so I park it there. And then for the farmer's market, yeah, maybe for once a week, I guess, that's nice. But maybe if we get Bruce's outdoor pavilion, then.
Thank you. Yeah, and feel free if any more suggestions come up, feel free to send them my way.
But I'm super happy to hear that it's still, because it was my understanding was destroyed. So I'm really happy to hear that, because it's really nice to park your bike to that thing. It is just super easy.
Good.
Easy to pull in and pull out. It's great.
Is that like a cattle feed corral? That's really what it looks like to me. Like something you get from a farm and fleet. But no, that's great. That's great. Yeah, we'll look for a good use for it. Okay, and then just a quick project update. We had our couple of sidewalk projects we got going on. The winter sidewalk construction's underway. There's 9 locations they're working on. I know they just finished a block on Hill Street. Been working on some various locations: California, Lincoln, Eads, and so just it's been some nice work done in some of the lower income neighborhoods of the city. We've been whenever we encounter brick sidewalks that are in locations that allow us to convert it to concrete, we'll communicate that with the property owners and say, hey, we'd love to convert this to concrete if you'd be willing, and we've been having pretty high success rate with that. And so we've had some good brick sidewalk conversions, getting some better ADA compliance, kind of better durable surfaces there. And we have a pretty large design effort underway now. I want to say that was like 18 locations, and a lot of those were the EQL projects. So the EQL project is beginning design now. Survey will begin. Expect to have documents for bidding in November for those. So That's all I've got. Any questions?
The new ped bike crossing on Lincoln Avenue is now installed, and paint is on the ground, and there's big signs up. And I have both driven down that street, and I have crossed it on bike a few times. As a vehicular driver, it's very hard to stop for pedestrians because there's no stop bars, and people aren't slowing for pedestrians. And then when I have biked across it, once I did it with a big group of cyclists, and this was before, I know this is not your design work, and we mentioned when the design work was happening, we said, people aren't gonna stop for anybody unless there's stop bars, and we were told if people see people, they will just stop for them. And then we said, I don't think so. And then the other problem is like if you put in stop bars, you can actually, cars can actually see the people in the crosswalk. Yeah. So I was with like 7 or 10 cyclists, and 3 of them got across, and the rest of us just stood there while the cars zoomed by. So it is working exactly as designed. We were told that stop bars would slow down traffic and muck up traffic. By that, they meant car traffic. So it's an improvement, and it's really great to see it, but I do fear someone is going to get killed. So that will be a bummer. So anyway, I just want to say it's good. It's just sort of wish we could get some stop bars on that street. I think it would really be helpful.
This is at Main and Lincoln.
Yeah, Main and Lincoln. It's new infrastructure. It's really nice. It's just cars aren't stopping for pedestrians, and it's hard to, honestly. Like when we're driving down the street, you don't, because there's no stop bars. You see the yellow signs for pedestrians, to be aware, but it's very hard to stop if there's not a stop bar. It's the same problem we have on Lincoln, closer to the university. There's no stop bars at any of that, at that infrastructure, so it's very hard for people to stop.
I go across there every day, and, it's much better than it was because drivers do slow down because it's like, especially because it's taken so many years. So it's, when there's a bunch of cones still there, then they're especially more aware. So it is a lot better, but drivers are often pretty darn confused.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're kind of, they're watching me, and they're not sure what they're supposed to do, and then a lot of times that often they're like they assert themselves because it's like,
Well, the design is telling them to go.
Exactly.
The design is not telling them to stop.
Right.
If
And
you
so
don't have a
they-
stop bar,
yeah.
you go because there's
Right.
no place to stop. Are you going to stop right where the zebra crossing is? No, you're gonna there's nothing that says stop your vehicle.
No, it is. I mean, like I said, that there's enough of them to be, that are dangerously asserting, like, no, I have the right of way. Now, the normal is to slow down. But
We drove down it, and you don't slow down because no one else around you is slowing down. So you're not going to slow down because it's dangerous. If there were a stop bar there, then people would naturally, so they'd be like, oh, look, it's like a stop sign, and now I'm going to slow down. It's what we have all over campus. People understand that concept of design, but without a stop bar, you just go because why would you stop? You're going to get rear-ended.
Do you know, is there still plan for the South Lincoln safety study, right? Or,
Yeah, that's getting started now.
and also North Lincoln, I guess, far north. Washer
Yeah,
Drive.
yeah, to a certain degree, yes. I mean,
Yeah.
both are going to be moving into planning study phases. Yep. The Lincoln from Florida to Green is starting now, and we are planning to start on that Lincoln from Washer to Killarney, the north part, in next year, like 2024.
I just remember, and it must have been 6 or 7 years ago when that design for Main Street was first presented to us. I think the first time through, they actually were hoping to put in a button there for a crossing so it would stop traffic. But then they said that the traffic volumes didn't justify it. And I wonder with the new development there, if that might have changed and if there's a way to check that and see if a button would be justified there now.
Yes, that definitely could be evaluated. It's like the pedestrian crossing, you know, what,
Because there's no stop sign there, and there's
Sure.
no
You're
stoplight.
thinking like what they've done on the Granger Engineering campus, where you press a button and there's, and
Yeah.
lights and people, okay, I see.
And by Meadowbrook.
like steps up you could do of more warnings, more notifications, more flashing lights, things like that. Yeah, yeah, it's something that could be done definitely.
What's the geographic area of South Lincoln for this safety study?
From Florida Avenue up to Green Street.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
That's very exciting, by the way, because that is nasty on so many levels.
I don't drive that stretch when I can help it, but yes, no.
You unfortunately have to drive it frequently.
Yes,
Frequently.
I understand.
And again, I would just like a stop bar to stop my vehicle. I just want to know where to put my vehicle when there's humans crossing the street. Otherwise, you're like, I don't know, do I just stop it here or not at all? Or I just drive. Like, that's all that happens. You just drive.
I almost forgot, and Bill, thank you for bringing up the North Lincoln Avenue. I'm sad to say we learned we did not get the Safe Streets for All grant. So nobody in our region got any part of the grant. So we'll look forward to learning more, kind of a debriefing from the feds of what happened. But yep, not this time. We'll assuming the program continues, we'll try again next time. So, and we are reapplying for the RAISE grant for Florida Avenue next week. So fingers crossed there as well.
Thank you for all your work on this. Are you like the only planner at the city at this point?
Oh, no, I'm not
And
a
our
planner.
secretary?
I am not a planner.
Not a planner?
I'm just an engineer.
Just an engineer. I'm sorry, that's what I meant. We're one of the few remaining engineers and a secretary. You can add that to your resume
Yeah.
now. You know that, yeah.
Pretty poor at that, but no, thank you. We're, and I shared with council last month, I'm really happy that we've gone from a low of 5 staff in engineering to 8. So it used to be 13 people 5 years ago, so we're kind of working our way back. But
And I can say, like, after I've been on this commission for a while, and 13 wasn't even enough for the city at the time. They were stressed out at the time, so just do the best you can, because we would like to keep you around if that's possible.
hey, thanks. I'd like to stay. All right. Thanks very much.
Thank you. So I guess I'm next with the annual report draft, and then we can talk about the newsletter thing. I had hoped to get farther on this than I did. I had some major software problems, so the last part will just be kind of a outline, but I think I have most of the topics in there, so if there's something that you see that was left out, we can talk about that. So I think I got everybody who's new in there. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So yeah, this is for last year. I left the basic background in there. I think the only thing I changed was it said that we reapplied for the bicycle-friendly community, bicycle-friendly gold. Introduction, I haven't taken out yet. I don't know if I should repeat this. This is like general information about bicycle and pedestrian use in Urbana, and why active transportation is a good thing to support. I think it's good to have something like that in there, but this was in there last year, so what do you think? Is it okay? I don't think there's really much to update in there. It doesn't change that frequently, but
People don't remember, you know.
Yeah.
This is the important stuff that, keep it in there.
okay. So then our infrastructure improvements for this last year, we talked about the crosswalk. Actually, this picture on the front was what we're talking about there. This is the crosswalk at Main Street. It does allow cyclists who are on the street to get over onto the sidewalk because there's a connection there. So it is kind of unique in that sense. That's new. There's a pedestrian refuge island that's just barely enough wide enough for my bike. I don't think Sue's would fit in there. So, but if your
And
angle
with
is right.
my bike, when I've gotten there, they do stop because I'm big.
Yeah. But it's a big improvement from what was there. I don't think there was any island there before, and I know I've gotten stuck in the middle at night, and that's scary.
It's nice because you can do a two-stage crossing now safely instead of the terrible two-stage crossing I used to do.
So that was one of the infrastructure improvements. Then the Race Street, all the new curbs on South Race Street. I don't know, for people that don't live in that area, from Illinois down to Washington was all resurfaced, and all the curb cuts were improved. Some of them didn't have any ramps before. Some of them were just solid curb there. So now it's completely accessible. Is this a bus pad? Is there a bus pad there? Like, oh, it's a driveway, probably. Okay. I just saw that in my picture today. I thought, oh, did they put a bus pad there? So, yeah. But yeah, that's a big improvement. And that's one of those areas, I think, where the bricks can be replaced if the property owner requests it. Is that right?
Yep.
So they checked, and some people did. In other areas, especially where there's big trees, but they didn't want to try to mess with that. So that, you can still walk around the trees on the broken brick, but just I don't know. I guess eventually there will probably be a brick sidewalk program that might be able to address some of that. And then this is also actually a pretty big improvement. Went through, and at least for immediate improvements where there were broken or raised concrete slabs. They did a lot of this. I don't know if you're walking around town, it's just seems to be all over. So you must have spent a lot of time, somebody did, going through that. Windsor Road resurfacing, talk about that a little bit, and the rumble strips. And I took a couple pictures to try to show why having this solid rumbles, and there it doesn't look solid, but because it just rained, but that's 16 inches wide and solid rumble strip there. Here's somebody turning right in front of you, and you'd really rather be over here on your bike, but instead you're here. So that's one problem. This is the one coming up to Race Street from the west, and you have this solid rumble strip, and your path goes over here onto the sidewalk. And in order to get over, especially if you wanted to turn left, you'd want to be in the left lane to turn north on Race Street there. So, yeah. So just talk about that and how, the engineers that we contract with should check out the bicycle plan and use rumble strips with gaps like what used to be there. What they used was the local motor something plan.
They use the IDOT local roads and streets manual.
Yeah, the IDOT local, like generic local plan, which is a little behind in updating. The Illinois Bicycle Group is working with them to update that, but it hasn't been updated. So even though Illinois specifies gaps on their highways, like their rural highways, like 130 has gaps, for the local plan, they haven't updated yet and doesn't have gaps, and they're too wide.
And I have to say, I enjoy biking on Windsor. I don't love biking on Windsor, but I do bike on Windsor, and I do feel safer because of this infrastructure. And I'm not saying what you're pointing out is wrong. I am saying, though, I am appreciative for that infrastructure because it has made. The other thing that's nice is with that new Savoy bike path, when you come off that bike path, you can then go over to Meadowbrook and do a loop around Meadowbrook. Because of this, I normally would never bike on Windsor. I would think it was too scary.
I mean, it always had the rumble strips. The only complaint we had was that there weren't gaps. And then I put in here a couple things that weren't city projects just because they were kind of newer treatments and worth mentioning. I don't know if you noticed on by Clark Lindsay on Race Street, the construction company that by their staging area there put in temporary lights that are motion activated right over the sidewalk. There's like 3 or 4 of them at least. And that was at the request of Clark Lindsay for their employees who had to walk that way to get to their parking, which is up by the church now, the temporary parking up by the church. So, that might be something that the city eventually could actually require of, in some cases, if somebody's doing some construction, they're going to be taking out parking, or they're going to be taking out lights that were in a parking lot, or, for some reason they're taking out lights, or going to be using a sidewalk more, you could ask them to provide this, I think these are even solar powered, so. That, and then also the path on South First Street between Windsor Road and Curtis Road. That was funded through ITEP funding, and that has the same, has much fancier motion detection lights and a lot of them. But that's, I think it's worth mentioning that. What do you think? Because it's in our area, even though it's not in Urbana, and it's
Is that
nice.
the lighting when you're doing a loop around Meadowbrook Park? It's like, there's that little low lighting by their construction space?
Yeah, it's right on Race Street, that kind of just north of the gardens there.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're using that parking lot for staging their construction.
And what I couldn't figure out, I saw it this weekend, was there the lighting there before?
Well, I think there was I think there was a parking lot there that might have had a pole light, but they knocked it down in order to make room for their construction material and everything.
Interesting. I'm kind of ambivalent about whether or not that goes in there, but I do think, because for me, first off, it's exciting that oftentimes I'll see people do construction and just take away, they'll just be like, the sidewalk is closed. Right, so I'm really glad. So it's really exciting that not only, I guess for me, what I might say is it's very exciting that not only did they not close the sidewalk, but they also they realized that they had taken out lighting and that they made sure it was safe for the pedestrians to use the space.
Yeah, I've seen people walking in the street on Springfield there by the new apartment building. It would have been nice to provide some of those concrete barriers maybe along the north-south side of Springfield in front of the apartment that's being built. This is like between Busey and Kohler, I think. I remember when the U of I had some construction down there by the new practice football field, by the cemetery on 4th Street. And I remember that for several years they had those concrete bollards, is that what you call them? Those kind of median. They're concrete barriers.
Jersey barriers.
Right.
Jersey barriers,
Jersey
but they
walls.
were, they were out from the curb about 8 or 10 feet, so
Right.
people could walk along there, walk in the street, but behind the barriers.
They're
Something
great.
like
They're why
that.
construction workers, why they put them up for construction workers when they're working in a space. They should also put them up for the
I
pedestrians
don't know how
on
much
the other
longer
side.
that apartment's gonna be under construction in Springfield, but maybe you could check that out.
I think that the Savoy, that stretch on First Street is like totally worth mentioning because it took a long time to get it. And I think, we need to, we have so many car culture mindset people that just think it's okay, and it's like, no, really, we can make these kind of interconnectivity.
Yeah, I
and
was gonna say the
that's
connectivity is what's
it's
great.
Huge.
Yeah.
It's like, instead of it just being, here's a nice stretch here, you'll only die twice on your commute,
Well, I think that took a lot of effort because it is a township.
Right.
It's the one block, the 1 square mile that's not in Champaign or Savoy, it's in the township. So but the U of I owns the property on the west side, so the U of I was involved and cooperated in providing the property.
Yeah, I
But
think
like
it's
that,
worth
like-
rah-rahing.
Yeah, because opening that up, I had no idea everything that was over at that mall. You can go roller skating, you can go see a movie, you can buy running shoes, you can go to a Goodwill, you can go to a Schnucks. It's really cool. There's a lot of stuff over there, which in my car, I would never really see or experience very much. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, and the object isn't to really boost Savoy, but to make people think, well, if we had, a path like that in Urbana that we needed and were able to do, it would open things up and do the same. Then the equity of and quality of life projects is probably one that I should expand on more, and I didn't get the numbers of projects, so I'll get that in there. Bike master plan review, I just put one sentence in there. I'll try to expand that a little bit, and maybe talk about a couple of things they brought up in their review. BPAC goals, that's just an outline at this point, but yeah, I think we should probably list those, because this is the first year we've had those. That was a good idea. Vision Zero. So here I talk a little bit about the Safe Streets for All grant that we didn't get, that RPC applied for and didn't get. That was all for implementation of infrastructure problems. The ones that got funded in Illinois were all for planning projects, for action plans. And there wasn't much. There's only 5.3 million in Illinois. California got like 130 million. So I don't know. We need to look into what's going on with that. I think they did focus on areas that had high fatality rates. In California and Florida came out pretty well because pretty high fatality rates because of the weather and stuff. They'd have more people walking and biking year round. So their per capita fatality rates tend to be higher. So that might be one reason, but we should definitely look into that to see what we could do. And if you haven't seen it, RPC has some online maps now that have all the crashes, and you can click on each crash and get a little bit more information about it. So I'll try to find that and put the link in there for that. Okay, and then other topics, the no parking in bike lanes, the East University Avenue IDOT project. So for each of these, I'll just put a sentence or two. Other grants we applied for, or we didn't, but the city did, Baker Lane and Florida Avenue Raise grant. I didn't know that you were doing that again. Do you need another letter? Or are you reusing the letter we did?
Yeah, the feds told us we could use the same letters because they were only like a year old. So
we wrote letters of support for those.
Yep.
The budget we talked about last year being so low, so this is left in from last year, but I could put in the CIP next to it for this year, or else just put in this year's, because it's gone up a lot. I mean, that's one thing that we were pretty successful with, is increasing the budget for sidewalk and maintenance. So I'll try to either put in a comparison or put in the new picture that shows the increased. What do you think? Put it in both pictures, show before, like last year's CIP versus this year. The one they passed this last summer would have like big lines, pretty much clear across for 5 years, isn't it? I think this year was going to be really high because of the equity and quality of life projects, or
right.
And sidewalk maintenance, some sidewalk projects and stuff like that. But even after that, it was higher. So I might put both of them in there to show how it changed, and thank the council for that. This we had in there last year, increased staff support for BPAC. I think it's in almost every annual report. So I think I'll leave it in. And that's one of the things in the bicycle-friendly community application, where they ask about, how many staff members dedicated for cycling and pedestrians, and then talk a little bit about the application.
Wait, about the BFC Gold, are we not, I kind of like, if we can put like a giant red flashing light on something, are not all the shared streets not going to be counted anymore as streets that have bicycle infrastructure on them? So we're about to really get dinged pretty hard.
Yeah, the Sharrows and...
So between like the lack of Vision Zero, the lack of having dedicated staff, and then all the share roads being taken off the books, we might be in trouble.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, everybody will have that same thing with Sharrows, so I'm sure they'll expect I assume a lot of other cities have that. But I think we had some positives too that we talked about pretty good, especially with the sidewalks, maintenance, and some of the other things. The 3 feet passing
And
signs.
another reason why they took the share roads off is because there's actually, the accident rates on share roads are just as high, if not higher, without any bike infrastructure, which is why they took it off.
It's interesting.
Yeah, I didn't know that either, but that's the reality.
I think that's as far as I got. So there were still 2 or 3 months of minutes I wanted to look at, but anything off? Well, first of all, which of these do you think is more important that I should put first? Anything pop out that I think equity and quality of life, that's kind of a big deal that we hadn't done before and would like to do again. So maybe put that first. Does that sound reasonable?
And then you can refer to that when you
Draw
can see the
infrastructure.
change in the graph, the one that you were gonna show both of them, and that, get back to like, hey, we did this great
So
thing.
then the funding,
Doing that,
so
yeah.
funding maybe after that. Then probably Vision Zero. Infrastructure. Want infrastructure at the end, or should infrastructure still be toward the beginning?
It's really visible, so I'm not, like, if it's at the end, that might be what they remember.
I like beginning because
Yeah.
it takes a long time to put to plan, implement. I mean, infrastructure, like
it's-
what we're seeing here has been in the works for many years. And so I feel like infrastructure is like, it's what people are interested in. It's what people say, oh, I spent money on this and then I got a thing. So they're very excited about infrastructure, as they should be. It's a big deal. Yeah,
Yeah,
it takes a lot of
pictures.
work, takes a lot of money and energy and time from a lot of staff. And
It's pretty easy to grasp the meaning and the importance and progress if you see pictures in the infrastructure. I think that's still good to have kind of toward the beginning, and then we'll do the equity. When we start talking about anything besides infrastructure, I'll start out with equity and quality of life, and then budget and Vision Zero, and then the other stuff. How's that sound? Anything else you remember talking about last year that I left out? I'm sure there were a few other things that I'll find in the minutes that I'll just add as other topics and things like that. Anything else you think that we should put in the annual report as far as, this is our main chance to communicate with council, so.
Is there anything about e-bikes that we want to put in there? Or is that still
That's right,
kind
we
of
did talk about that, so that would definitely be another topic.
And I was reminded, I got an email from Lily Wilcock this past week where I want to say that kind of IGA about e-bikes is going to sunset here. I think that was brought up earlier, where like the Champaign, Urbana, Savoy IGA was going to sunset, and so it was just going to kind of restart the whole, restart the local regulations for e-bikes essentially.
Okay.
But anyway,
My impression right now, I'm the one who broached this at the beginning of our year, is that the e-bike situation is changing so rapidly that it's a moving target. I think the best we can do is say we're trying to watch very closely. I've been looking at the major national marketers. They've now discounted heavily bicycles that have a top speed of 28 miles an hour. Inflation may be going this way, but the price and power of e-bikes is going, in another direction. I don't know if anybody has a grip on how to integrate this safely and effectively into the overall transportation plan.
I think this would be a great opportunity to pass along knowledge that you guys have about e-bikes to council, and I think that'd be a good avenue to do, even if it's pretty basic, because we know it's continuing to change. Yeah.
You know, we could just say it's just a growing market, and it's a new just because it's not just e-bikes, it's e-scooters, it's the whole electric mobility,
Micro-mobility.
micro-mobility.
And that, yeah, I think we need something in there to let them know that we are getting aware of it and we're trying to help,
I mean, I was just in New York City, and there were more electric vehicles, like bikes, than regular bikes. It was crazy. And tons of streets shut down for pedestrians, like all over the place. And this was dense. This was Williamsburg. It was incredible to see. But yeah, so yeah, I think just a way to acknowledge that we're aware that there are going to be more people moving out of their cars in these micro-mobility methods, on scooters and other methods.
Okay, that's a good idea.
Part of the presentation was about like the focus kind of on equity too, about like where the scooters are being used. And I think, I forget their name, it's Shay, kind of wanted a more unified approach to how bikes were used and enforced between the governmental lines. And I think too, maybe council would be interested to know that there are ways to geofence out where bikes are not allowed, or even to set different speed limits for them, like in a park or in a downtown area.
Okay. Yeah, I remember also asking Shay about their low-income program they have in some cities where you can get like, I don't know, much reduced price. I forget what it is, but yeah. So I could mention the VO presentation and e-bikes and equity.
Did you have like bike to work day and walk and roll to school day in
Yeah.
there?
I
Like
don't-
Thomas rather just presented to us in January, but some of those things happened last year. And I think it's like one of the few like opportunities where BPAC members are, collaborating on a large scale with community members and kids.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I should mention like public outreach, make a category for that or something, and mention those things. Anything else? Any other ideas?
When is this going to council?
Well, I probably ought to bring it back so you guys can approve it in March and then
Okay.
present it to council the week after that or something.
I'll talk about it more in March when I go over the pedestrian master plan, but something I noticed was how much less of a focus on pedestrian cycling issues are in the mayor and council's strategic plan for this past term. Just looking at the plans for when the pedestrian master plan was first prepared versus the current term, I'm not sure if we are, whether that we want to put that in the goals for trying to bring that up again.
Say that again. I got a little distracted by.
Oh, no worries. For the mayor and council's strategic goals for each term.
All right.
The
okay.
previous term seems like pedestrian and cycling issues there was a lot more mention of it across multiple categories.
Yeah.
Whereas this term it seemed to have taken a back burner, especially on the safety one.
Yeah.
I was surprised to see very little
They
mention.
didn't mention. Yeah. Very little
so
mention.
I don't know if we want to bring that up in the annual report about this term. There being a lot less of a focus.
Yeah, because we did have a recommendation in there last year, I think, or request that something, maybe it's 2 years ago, that Vision Zero be included in the council goals. But yeah, they don't do those every year. They do them every
2 or 3.
4 years, I think. But I can definitely mention it.
I feel like that should be. I think the current one is to 23, so they may be going into a new strategy, hopefully this year. So it might be good to bring that up again.
Okay, I'll try to figure out some way to work that in. Good idea. Okay, thank you. And feel free to send me anything in the next week or two. If something comes to mind.
Bill, you're doing heroic work on this. I really appreciate an awful lot of effort.
I had the worst trouble with Microsoft 365 trying to do Word online. It just wasn't cooperating.
And, you know, Bill, my latest thing that I've discovered is going to sound really dumb, but like the Google slide decks, I don't know if you have access to that, but boy, are they easy to use compared to PowerPoint or, yeah. So you could just make a deck and then export it. I don't know. That would be I hate Word.
When I'm working with students, it's like if it's, I tell them, download it.
Okay, the thing I added to the agenda, or asked to be added, was I don't know how many people are subscribed to All About You newsletter. It's actually pretty interesting. There's a lot of little blurbs about all the things coming up, urban city initiatives and everything. And it comes out every month, usually it's about the second week of the month. And Bridget does that. And I mentioned to her that we'd like to start getting more stuff in there. So we put in a snow removal blurb last month, and it will probably never snow again this winter, but at least, we got something. And, you wouldn't expect snow to stop already, but maybe it will. So some other ideas I thought of were maybe definitely when Bike Month comes up, maybe even the month before Bike Month to give them some warning. Things like reflective wear, any kind of highlight new ped bike improvements, and just like one of these things every month. New bike laws, new signage, reporting maintenance, how to report maintenance problems, walk and roll to school day, park district classes coming up, bicycle classes that Park District or CCB offers. So I guess I'd like to get a couple of people to volunteer to work on these blurbs that just kind of do one every month. Sue, you want to be involved in that? Yeah. Okay. Anyone else?
Especially like I'm with the cycle club too, so there's,
okay.
Stuff that's whatever's happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, Cynthia and I are planning on doing traffic skills 101 type bicycle training at MTD, so I could put together a blurb on like some basic riding a bike in traffic and come to our class to learn more.
Okay. Yeah, I think these are, do you subscribe to this All About You? Have you seen it?
I have not.
Okay. I recommend that people subscribe to this. It's an email thing, and you get it once a month. And it can get pretty long, but each blurb is maybe like, I don't know, what do you think, a third of a page, something like that. And, maybe some art if you have it.
I like the idea that every month BPAC will decide what we will forward to, maybe every month we discuss, because we all love discussing things on this committee. And then we just say, hey, this is who's going to send, maybe just deputize somebody send, so-and-so has to send this.
Yeah, it'd be nice to get some done kind of in advance. And some of these things I think we could use every year, and maybe just tweak them a little bit. Other things, when there's a new infrastructure that might be a little confusing, like the crossing at Lincoln or something, it might be worth just putting an overhead and a diagram, how to use this or something like that.
Yeah, I could do that, especially I could go out and take a picture.
Yeah. Okay, so Adam, right? No. Yeah, okay. Dan, yeah. Dan and Sue. And so, yeah, maybe, if we could consider that a committee, then you could just be part of the reports of committees every month. Yeah. And you could suggest that we do this blurb this month and get some agreement. Or if you can't decide between two, you should say, well, should we do this snow removal or should we do this? And then we could vote on it. Okay,
And if they put the blue bike.
that'd be
path,
great.
That would definitely be able to.
Thanks. Okay, any other thoughts on that?
I think it's a great idea.
The other thing I mentioned to Bridget that I didn't really think much more about was trying to brand it with some kind of BPAC. Something recognizable. I don't know if it'd be a logo or, a slogan. I don't know. Some way to get BPAC's name out there. I mean, we did, for the snow removal, I did have a link to BPAC's, and she keeps track of how many people click on the links, and BPAC's blurb got like third highest clicks of all the blurbs, so just below the mayor's message. I forget what was first. Oh, I think sustainability was first that month. And I think she said that about 40% of the emails are actually opened. So that's good too. That's high. I open mine about 40% of the time, I think. So I must be average. Anything else on that? Okay. Any announcements?
I have a quick question. I would like to shut down my street in front of my house for when my magnolia tree blooms and have a party.
You can do that. You can
Yeah.
apply for a block party.
That is my question. How do I go about doing that?
That is a special event permit. Special event permit.
Yeah.
If you have any trouble finding that on our website, feel free to reach out to me.
Okay, I'll invite you to the Bloomin' Magnolia Garage Party. I think that's the title.
They'll even give you sawhorses to block the street if you're nice.
It's my understanding. I mean, like the street I live on has, it's a very short street, does not get much car traffic, and it has 3 houses, and it's kind of an inn with the lady across the street from me. She's totally down with it. So, and it actually might only be 2 houses, actually, now that I think about it. So we have 100% applicant. I think we're good.
Yeah, I was going to say you might need to get some signatures, but it sounds like that won't be a
I think
problem.
Jenny and I, I've already okayed it with her. And I've already told my neighbors who have I think they have, oh my God, 5 kids or something. I was like, hey, would you be interested? They're like, oh my God, these kids can just play in the street all day. I go, yeah. So I think it'll be kind of fun, but I think it'll be good for me to go through the process of doing it. I just wasn't quite sure what that would be. Okay, special event permit. I'm on it.
It's easy. We've got 7 houses on our dead-end street. We do an annual fall block party, and it's quite a simple process.
Oh, good. Thank you. Because I was kind of, okay, cool. I'm really glad to hear that. I just didn't know if it would be super hard or not at all. All right.
Any other announcements?
I guess I'll say for Park District, really sad to see Kara leave. I want
Yeah.
to thank Kara for her service.
For the public, this will be Kara's last meeting.
Yeah, for your professionalism and keeping us in line. Sidebar, I'm excited to see the Park District's new path along Broadway went out, and I think the bid was accepted. And
Yep, the ITEP grant that we put in 2020 was for the corner of Park and Broadway up to like the entrance of Crystal Lake Park. So it actually came in under the engineer's estimate too, which is wonderful, and it should be done by this calendar year.
That includes the bridge, right?
Yeah, so if you started at the corner of Park and Broadway and you started on like the new the ITEP path that we did a couple years ago, you could take the whole Park Road all the way around, come out the Park Road on Broadway, and then you'd have another 10-foot multi-use path to head south. So you could do an entire loop, which was the vision the whole time. And yeah, the pedestrian bridge is also, I think it's even wider than 10 feet, so that people can also be standing and like looking at the saline also.
Nice.
Yeah, Gar, I as well am very, very sad that you are leaving. And I did a group bike ride through Crystal Lake Park this weekend. It's just gorgeous. So thank you for everything you've done and the legacy you've left here. And, you know, when you get sick of New Orleans and the housing prices, the traffic, that's about all you'll get sick of there, really. We'll welcome you back with open arms.
Well, thank you. I hope that the next person who comes from the Park District also has a planner brain to help you all out.
Okay, any future topics that people have in mind?
Well, we'll keep the annual report on as unfinished business, I suppose. Did you want to do continue Bruce's conversation next month as well? Potentially have a resolution.
Yeah, probably. And then, were you gonna do something on the pedestrian master plan? Okay, did you want to do that next month or the week? Okay, so pedestrian master plan update or review? Okay. Well, that should be plenty for next month. Okay, if there's no further business, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you all very much.